Hi there. Welcome to Next Level Yoga. I'm Tara Kestner. We're out here on the front porch on a beautiful day, and today's focus is going to be the lower body, the hips, the hamstrings, the hip flexors, and a little bit of the low back. So if you're experiencing low back issues, I work with a lot of athletes who are really tight in the lower body, and we're just going to work on all of the groups together and see if we can't help you out with that. I am of the opinion that you can't really work on big muscles like that have really strong tendons and deep set joints without developing a little bit of heat in the lower body. I don't really think that stretching cold muscles is the way to go I don't find it to be very effective. So we will spend some time up working some power poses to try to get a little heat in those joints and those muscles before we head down and we isolate them. So you will need a strap for this class. If you don't have a yoga strap, then a belt will do. They tend to be a little short, so you might have to buckle two belts together, dog leash, a towel, a scarf, anything along those lines will work. So if you don't have one, go ahead and find one, hit pause, and come back here, and we'll get started. So when you found your strap, you settle in. You can sit on a blanket like I am, or a towel, but it's not necessary. And we'll start as we always do. Take a nice easy breath in, nice and slow. Notice I said slow, not necessarily deep. And then as you exhale, allow your eyes to close. Begin to lower the chin just a little bit so the back of the neck can become slightly long. And start to notice your breath. It might be all tight and you might feel your shoulders creeping up into your ears. And if that's the case, then just focus on each exhale. With each exhalation, try to allow the shoulders to relax and the face to soften. And we'll just sit here for about 30 seconds just to settle in. One more breath here. And as you finish this breath, allow your eyes to softly open. Reach your hands behind you. Draw in a big wake-up breath as you sweep the arms up overhead. Look up there. Turn your palms out, and as you exhale, push the air down. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, reach it up. Exhale, push it down. 1 more of these. Inhale, reach. Exhale, let it go. And we're going to come on over to hands and knees. We're heading to child's pose. So you're going to take the knees nice and wide. And you're going to allow the hips to sink back towards the heels. And you'll lower on down onto the forearms. Lower your head on down and just keep walking your fingertips forward until your elbows come up off the mat. And then just gently push the mat away, which will move the tailbone a little closer to the heels. And stay here for 3 breaths. And 1 more breath here. And then begin to lift your head. And find your way up to all fours. Walk the knees in under you. Walk the hands back a bit. Just gently wag out the tail. Drop the belly, lift the face. Take a breath in. And as you exhale, drop your head. Push the ground away. Tuck the tail under. To a cat stretch, and then inhale back into that cow pose, dropping the belly, lifting the face, and exhale, round it out into cat. 1 more inhale, into cow. And exhale into cat. And we're not messing around here. We're going to get up to standing right away. Go ahead and tuck the toes under. Lift the knees up off the ground a few inches. Bring your chin into your chest and then let your hips float on up there. And start to push the ground away with your hands and pedal out the heels. Just starting to waken up the muscles in the calves. Kind of take a little assessment here of just how tight are the hamstrings. If the answer is very tight, you are in the right place. And we'll begin to walk the feet up to the top of the mat. Take the feet a little wider than the hips. Bend your knees a lot so your belly rests on or between your thighs, and then drop your head and look through your knees. And gently sway it out as you begin to grab opposite elbows. That's going to create a little more dynamic tension as it opens the shoulder blades a bit more. And start to take the arms around the outside edges of the shins. Getting into those QL muscles. The QLs are in the sides of the low back, and they give people a lot of trouble. Make sure you're tucking your chin a bit so the back of the neck can decompress. And we'll stay here for one more sway. And then we'll start to become still in the center and just hang over the legs. Let your arms just unceremoniously drop to the ground. Tick-tock the feet in just a little closer. So you can put about 2 fists in between your big toes. And then we're going to slide the hands up onto the knees, and we're going to push the upper body up off the legs. Tuck the tail under and round roll the rest of the way up to standing. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. Turn the palms out behind you, and with an inhale, sweep the arms up overhead. Go ahead and press the palms together, hook the thumbs, and lean to your left. And bring it back to the center. Take a breath in. As you exhale, lean to your right. Bring it back to the center. Lift your chin up. Separate your hands and begin to bring your elbows down and back. Inhale, reach it back up there. Bend your knees a lot. Turn your palms out and swan dive down over the legs. Now let's play with a halfway lift. So often halfway lift is a throwaway pose. Let's take it seriously today. With an inhale, we'll slide the hands up the shins until the legs can become straight. Now for me, that's right about here, but if you're tighter, it might be somewhere at the knees. It might even be up here. You want the back to be flat and the legs to be straight. And you'll feel those hamstrings, back of the knee, into the calf. Then go ahead and rebend the knee and slide back down the legs into that forward fold. Let's try that again. On an inhale, find your halfway lift wherever it is. And as you exhale, bend the knees and slide back down. Drop your head. One more of those. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Steady yourself with your fingertips. Step your left foot as far back as you can. Keep your hips up and drop your head. And just gently shift from that back foot to the front foot. Starting to loosen up the joints a little bit. And then as you start to lift your head, let your hips start to sink down a little into that lunge. We'll plant the left hand on the mat. Bring your right hand up onto your front knee and slowly turn your head like you're looking behind you. And we'll bring that back down. Hand to the ground. Let's step back into plank, top of a push-up. And bring the shoulders forward and lower down all the way to the ground. When you get here, untuck your toes and peel up into a cobra pose. So just very gently begin to peel the chest up. Don't use the hands. And as you exhale, lower it on down. Let's push ourselves up off the ground. walk the knees forward. Tuck the toes under and lift back up into that downward facing dog. And pedal out the heels here, shake out the head. Lift the left foot up behind us. Doesn't have to be high, just enough that you can straighten out the leg, and then bend the knee into your chest and step it onto the mat. Drop your head, look at your back foot, and gently shift forward and back. Starting to loosen and limber. Allow the hips to rise up here, because that's what they want to do with everything being tight. And then we'll start to take control of this by lifting the head a bit. Make sure you might need to be up on your fingertips. And start to allow that right hip to come down. Go ahead and plant that right hand firmly under the shoulder. Bring the left hand up onto the front knee. And then start to look around behind you. Bring it back to the front. A little momentum in the back foot always helps. Step it up to the top. And let's take a halfway lift here again. Inhale it up. Exhale it down. With an inhale, sweep the arms up overhead. Press the palms together, and on your exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back up to the center, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Bring it back to the center on an inhale, look up, and as you exhale, bend the elbows, bring them down and back. Inhale, reach it up. Bend the knees a lot, take the palms out wide and swan dive down. Let's step the left foot back again. Shift and shimmy forward and back a bit. Looking at your back foot for now, but then begin to lift the face. Come up onto your fingertips, allow that hip to start to lower down a bit. Plant your left hand. You can bring your hand back up on your knee like we did before, or you can start to sweep it out to the side, revolving your lunge, getting into that IT band on that front leg. And then bring it on down. Stepping back into plank. And bringing the shoulders out over the fingertips, lowering down nice and slow. And then with a nice easy inhale, peel the chest up into cobra. Exhale. Lower it back down. Push yourself up off the ground. Tuck the toes under. Maybe walk the knees forward a bit. Lift the hips back into downward facing dog and pedal out the heels. Let's lift that left foot up off the ground. Swing the knee in. Step the foot onto the mat, drop your head, look at your back foot, come onto your fingertips, and shift forward and back. Settling in to this lunge, start to lift your face, let that hip drop down a bit, and then plant that right hand. Bring the left hand up onto the knee or sweep it out to the side and revolve your lunge. Sweeping it out or up, pushing the floor away from you with that right hand. And then bring it back down. Little bounce in the back foot. Step it to the top. Halfway lift here. Inhale up and exhale down. Bend your knees a lot. Take your hands wide. Inhale, sweep it up to standing. Press the palms together. Bring them down in front of your chest. We're going to move into some power poses, waking the legs up a little further. So we're going to lift the left knee up in front of us and reach the arms up overhead. So one-legged mountain. And begin to reach the hands out in front of you. Point the knee down at the ground and then bend your other knee and step that foot back, finding your way into a lunge. You can bring the hands to the hips if there's too many moving parts there. And you're just going to shift around. You want the feet to be in their own lanes. And you want to lift and lower that back heel until you can settle in there. Imagine I've just come up behind you and I've pressed down on your shoulders, sinking you down into that left hip flexor. Once you've settled in to this lunge, go ahead and bring the arms up overhead. We'll lengthen out that lever. And you can even lift your gaze and you'll feel that come up the left hip flexor. Draw a nice easy breath in here. Blow it out softly. And then we'll move on. We're going to look to the right. And then reach your left hand straight out in front of your chest. You can bring this right hand down on to your hip, or you can sweep it behind you and look back there. You're getting into this IT band as you turn. And just do what you can in this open body twist. Stay for one more breath. And then we'll bring it back forward. Bring the hands down to the mat and drop your head. Look at your back foot. Now spin it flat to the mat. Once again, up on the fingertips so you can shift around here. And then take that right arm, rest the forearm on the front leg, and begin to rise up. Now you want to square your body to the long edge of the mat here. So you can bring the hand onto the left hip, or you can reach it up overhead. Or if you'd like to get a little longer, you can reach out off the top of the mat. Side angle. One more breath here. And then as you exhale, we're going to begin to cartwheel the arms back. Keep the legs just as they are, nice and slow. Bring the arms up to level. Now you might want to lift and lower up out of that right hip because you might need to make a little more of an adjustment there. But we'll stay in this warrior two. If you feel your shoulders crawling up on your ears, flip your palms up. Otherwise, you can keep the palms down, reaching through the fingertips. Now we're going to come to reverse warrior, so flip that front palm up. Let that back hand drop down onto your leg as you reach for the ceiling. You can look up at your hand, or you can look behind you and reach over your head a little more. Maybe sink into that front knee a bit more. And stay here for one more breath. As you exhale, cartwheel the arms forward, bringing the hands to the mat, framing that front foot. Step back to downward facing dog. One slow motion chaturanga vinyasa. With the inhale, bring the shoulders out over the fingertips. Flatten out the back. Lift the gaze a little bit. Draw in a breath. And as you exhale, lower down part way and pause. Untuck your toes. And with an inhale, start to reach forward with the chest. Then push the ground away. Come into upward facing dog, keeping the gaze nice and level. And then retuck the toes. Lift the hips on up. Draw the chin into the chest. Coming into downward facing dog, pedal out the heels a bit. And then we'll walk it up to the top of the mat. Halfway lift again, just testing those hamstrings, seeing what's happening here. Inhale it up. Exhale it down. And as you inhale, come up to standing. Sweep the arms wide. Reach it up there. And bring the hands on down in front of the chest. Let's try that all on the other side. Lifting the right knee up in front of you. Reaching the arms up overhead. One-legged mountain. And we'll reach the hands straight out from the chest. We'll take that knee down, point it at the ground, and then bend the other knee. Step back as far as you can with that right leg. Maybe bring the hands down to the hips, and let's settle into this lunge. And once you've adjusted your feet to where you want them, imagine I've come up and I press down on your shoulders, pushing you down into it. When you've settled into the lunge, reach the arms up overhead. You can keep the gaze straight ahead with the shoulders nice and square, or you can look up through the hands, maybe reach back a little more to get into this hip flexor a bit. And then we'll let that go. Let's start to take that twist. First, look to the left, and then reach your right hand straight out from your chest. Left hand can come down onto the hip, or it can swing back behind you. Sinking in a little lower will make the twist a little easier. Stay for 3, 2, 1, and then sweep that hand back up to the front. Bring the hands down to the ground. Drop your head so you're looking at your back foot. Spin it flat to the mat so you're looking right into the arch of your foot. Bring the left forearm up onto that front leg and then reach up for the ceiling. Maybe that feels good right here, or maybe you'd prefer to reach over your head off the top of the mat. Really getting into this hip flexor all the way up through that oblique muscle. And then from here, we're going to head to Warrior Two. So go ahead and bring yourself on up. Level off those arms. Lift and lower yourself maybe in the feet. Make sure you're rolling into the outer edge of that foot on the front. We'll stay for just a couple of breaths. And then we head to Reverse Warrior. So flip the palm up. Drop the backhand down, reach for the ceiling, look up there. Find all that space on the left side, and then if you want, you can look down at your back foot and keep reaching over your head, bending that knee a little deeper. And staying for one more breath here. And then we'll cartwheel the arms forward, framing that front foot. Stepping back into downward facing dog, pedaling out the heels. And as I said, there was only one drop down or chaturanga vinyasa. So from here we'll lower down onto the knees. Now that the hips are nice and warm, we'll take some slower, a little bit deeper stretches. So we're going to extend the left leg out long. You're going to bend that knee in towards your chest and step it up and through your hands. There is no real graceful way to do it. You just kind of get there. And then we'll begin to shift forward and back a bit, coming onto the fingertips and maybe staying here, maybe bringing one forearm up onto the leg, or both. Maybe coming up onto the hands and pushing the knee away from you, all the time focusing on this area right here at the hip flexor. And one more breath here. And bring the hands on down. We're going to bring that knee back to all fours. And walk the hands back under you. We're going to slide the left knee forward, right up behind the wrist. And then kick the foot in a bit into a comfortable angle underneath you. Start to lift up that back knee and move it back a little and sink in. We're sinking into this piriformis muscle here and into the entire left hip joint. Pigeon pose. Shift it around and then begin to look over your left shoulder or just to the left. It'll be just enough to stretch that left hip flexor out a little more. And then bring your gaze back to the front, lower down onto the forearms. If you get here and this is just too much, it's too much pressure on the knee, the external rotation with the body weight on it is too much, then drop over onto your hip, come onto your back, and take this as a reclined pigeon pose. So you'll place the left ankle on the knee, you'll lift the foot up off the ground, you'll reach through and take a hold of that right thigh, and you'll draw the leg into you. That's the modification for pigeon. We're going to stay for about 30 more seconds here, in whichever variation you're in. And one more breath. And start to make your way up onto your hands if you're down, face down, and drop onto that left hip. Swing that right leg up and around. If you're on your back, join us in a seated position with your right leg extended out long and your left foot in almost as if it were a seated tree position, with your foot coming along the inside of that leg. Now we're going to angle our upper body so that we're mostly centered over that straight leg, and then bring the arms up overhead. Lifting the ribs up out of the waistband of the pants, you're going to look to the horizon and just start to hinge forward till you can't hinge. You're not going to go very far, I promise you. And then nothing moves but your hands. Just float your hands down to the ground. Maintain this beautiful alignment that you've got right here. You're opening that hip flex or the hamstring muscles very mechanically. So you've placed the skeleton in a position that kind of pulls on those rubber bands that are the muscles. And by leaning into it, and drawing that hamstring out long. Now start to look to the right. Bring your left hand either onto the knee of the straight leg or slide it along the outside of the calf. And then start to look around behind you, and your right hand, just kind of slide it back a bit. It's as if you're jumping over a hurdle here. You draw yourself into this gentle little twist. And then we'll release out of that. Go ahead and cross at the ankles, bring them in tight enough that you can roll over or get there however you want. I'll meet you in all fours. And we'll do all that on the other side. Let's extend the right leg out nice and long. Swing the knee into the chest. Step the foot through the hands, shifting forward and back a bit. In this lunge, you focus on that left hip flexor as you maybe crawl up the legs. Maybe you leave one hand on the ground and just bring your forearm up. Maybe you stay on the forearms in the pose I like to call baseball general manager, or you can walk the hands up and push the leg away from you, intensifying the stretch in that left hip flexor. Let the hips be really heavy and sink in. Take a few breaths here. One more breath. And from this lunge, bring the hands on down. We'll make our way back to all fours. And we'll move into pigeon on the right side. So slide the right knee up just behind the wrist. Kick the foot in a little bit to about the center line of the mat. And then just kind of inchworm your way down. Move the kneecap back, settle in, get closer and closer to the mat. Or flip over on your back. Put your right ankle on your left knee and draw that into reclined pigeon on the other side. Now if you're upright, start to look over your right shoulder. We'll hold this position just a little. 2 or 3 breaths. And then look back to the front, walk the hands forward, come down onto the forearms. Maybe grab opposite elbows or just leave the hands out there. Maybe stack up a couple fists and rest your head. Just staying here for probably another 35 to 40 seconds. One more breath. And then start to make our way back up. Drop onto that right hip. Bring that back leg up and around if you're on your back. Come to a seated position with your left leg extended out long and your right foot somewhere along the inside of that leg. Sit up really tall. Make sure you've rotated your upper body so you are more centered over the the leg, then you're going to come down in the center. Bring the arms up overhead. Take your gaze up to the horizon. Take a breath in. And as you exhale, just hinge forward a little bit, engaging that high hamstring, and pause. Don't try to go any farther than that. Float the hands down. Nothing moves but the hands. And come onto those fingertips. Keep the chin lifted off the chest. And keep playing around with that hinge forward. Gentle flex in this foot will engage the calf muscle, but not too much. You don't want to draw it back and add to that. So just a nice gentle flex in the ankle. And then we'll start to take that little twist. So begin to look to the left this time. Take your right hand onto the knee, the outside of the calf, or maybe you can get down to the ankle and hook your fingers around the outer edge of the foot. Start to slide that left hand behind you a bit so you can rotate your shoulders a little more and look behind you. Take one more breath here. And then let it go. Sit back up. Bring the soles of the feet together. Take a hold of the fronts of the ankles and sit up really tall. And then begin to hinge forward at the waist. Allow your elbows to gently press down, maybe on your thighs or out here on your knees. Your knees might be up here, and that's okay. Keep the chin up off the chest. That'll keep that hinge rather than allowing the tailbone to tuck under and your low back to round. So if you're sitting up like this and this is all you can lean without wanting to do this number, then that's fine. That's where you are. And we're going to finish the sequence in some hamstring isolations. So we're going to come onto our backs. This is where you're going to need the strap. So come onto your back. And get comfortable. Bring your right foot up and catch it in the strap. And then extend the leg out long. Take one tail of the strap in each hand and bring the knees together. So pinch your knees back together. Now work that strap up so it's kind of on the ball of the foot and draw back hard on it. Keeping the knees pinched together, we're focusing right now just on the calf muscle. So you can pull back as hard as you want on that strap. That calf muscle is pretty tight. The Achilles tendon's pretty strong. It can withstand your bicep strength. And then release that hard flex of the foot. And just with the strength of your arms, start to pull the foot up towards the ceiling. Walk your hands up the strap. We're isolating that medial part of the hamstring group. Hold on to it here. Now, release your grip just a little. Take both tails of the strap in your right hand. Slide your left hand down the strap towards your belly. And start to move that foot out to the side, out to the right. And you're not going to go too far. Don't try to go to the floor. You're going to go until that left hip wants to release from the mat. When you feel your left hip start to lift up, you've gone far enough. Now turn your toes out slightly and drive through that heel, isolating the interior muscle in the hamstring group. Go ahead and bring that leg back to the center. Swap out the hands. So take the left hand high, slide the right hand down the strap. Start to bring the foot over the belly just until you feel that right hip start to lift up off the ground. When you feel that, just kind of keep reaching back for the ground with that right hip, but keeping the foot right where it is. Turn the toe in very slightly. You might be feeling this along the outside of the calf, at the knee. Take it to a place, the edge, that we call the edge. So right before it's too uncomfortable to hold on to. And just sit with it right there. One more breath. And then release that. Kick the left foot up into the strap. Drop the right foot to the ground. Take one tail of the strap in each hand, knees pinched together, work the strap up onto the ball of the foot, and then pull back hard as you flex the foot, stretching that calf muscle, that Achilles tendon in a gentle way without having any body pressure on it. And then release that intense flex of the foot, and using just the hands, pull the foot up overhead, engaging that medial hamstring muscle, and then stop when your leg tells you to. Readjust your grip on the strap and just stay right here. You don't have to pull down hard. We're just holding the leg in place, allowing that muscle to soften. Put the tails of the strap together. Take your left hand up high. Slide your right hand down, closer to your belly. Now start to move the leg out to the side until you feel that right hip lift away, and then stop. Begin to turn the toe out slightly and then drive through that heel. We'll bring it back to the center. Swap out the hands. Right hand high, left hand slides down. Taking the foot across the body until this hip starts to lift a little bit. That's the left hip. Pause. Turn the toe in slightly. And just let your left hip be very heavy as it pulls back down on that IT band. One more breath here. And then go ahead and release that stretch. Kick your right foot up into the strap. Bend your knees a little. Maybe wrap the strap around your hands or bring your elbows down to rest on the ground. We're just going to keep the legs up in the air here for about a minute. This is how we're going to finish out today, with legs up in the air. Inverting the legs is great for runners or people who are even just on their feet all day, because we have lymph that collects in the feet, and lymph does not really rely on the circulatory system to move it around. Lymph is this viscous fluid that I call it the whale shark of the body. It goes around the body, it collects all the viruses and germs and takes them back to the lymph nodes and kills them there. But when it gets down in your feet, it can't really get out unless you invert the feet or you lay flat like we do at night, and that's how it equalizes itself. It moves through gravity and through muscle exertion. So that's how we end up pushing it out a lot when we run or do something. You'll notice that your fingers will get swollen when you run, and that is just you're exerting and pushing lymph out into the feet and the hands, and that's why you tend to get some swelling there. Keeping the legs up against a wall is good. Using a strap is good. You can be still, or if you're getting a little fidgety, you can gently rock from side to side, or maybe draw a circle with your feet and you'll get a little residual massage in your low back. And we'll stay here for one more breath. Blow the air out really softly. And then go ahead and bend the knees into your chest. Lose the strap off to the side. Cross at the ankles and hug the knees in. And just gently rock on the low spine. And then let go of the knees and the feet to the ground. Drop your knees over to the left and push yourself on up to a seated position. And bobble out the head a few times. Roll out the shoulders. And thank you so much for joining me out here on the porch today with all the sounds of natures and neighbors. Namaste.